Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the world of a tiny but incredibly dangerous parasite, Trypanosoma brucei rhodesiense. So, can you really get a fatal illness from just a simple insect bite? It sounds like something straight out of a horror movie, right? But believe it or not, for travelers and people living in certain parts of Africa, this is a very, very real danger. And the whole story, the whole chain of infection, it all starts with this guy right here. Meet the tsetse fly. It's the vector, the taxi, if you will, that carries the dangerous passenger we're talking about today. So, let's get to know this formidable parasite. We're going to introduce you to the agent behind what's known as East African sleeping sickness. Okay, so let's get a profile on this thing. First off, and this is super important, we're not talking about a bacteria or a virus. This is a unicellular protozoan. What does that mean? Well, it's a single-celled organism, but it's what we call a eukaryote, which means its cell is complex, with a nucleus kind of like our own cells. It's an endoparasite, so it lives inside its host. But here's the twist. It's extracellular. It hangs out in your blood, your lymph, your spinal fluid, but it doesn't burrow into your actual cells. And that little detail is absolutely crucial for how it plays hide-and-seek with your immune system and causes such a rapid, nasty disease. You know, sometimes those long scientific names seem kind of intimidating, but they can actually tell you a whole story. So, what's in a name? Let's deconstruct the science and history behind Trypanosoma brucei rhodesiense. So that first part, trypanosoma, it actually comes from two Greek words, trypano, which means borer or drill, and soma, which means body. So literally, borer body. And that's exactly what it does. The name itself paints this incredible picture of it corkscrewing its way through thick fluids like your blood. It's a fantastic description of its key survival tool. Okay, so what about this second part, brucei rhodesienses? Well, this is a total nod to history. The brucei part honors Sir David Bruce, the scientist who first made the connection between the parasite and the tsetse fly. And rhodesienses? That points us to a specific place, northern Rhodesia, which is modern-day Zambia. That's where it was first found in a person back in 1909. So the name is like a little time capsule of science and geography. All right, so where does this creature fit in the grand scheme of things? Here's its taxonomic classification, its family tree, so to speak. You can see it's a eukaryote. And as we go down the line, we get all the way to a very specific subspecies, Trypanosoma brucei rhodesiense. And this detail is everything. Why? Because other subspecies of Trypanosoma brucei might infect animals, but they can't handle human blood. This one is perfectly and lethally adapted to us. So to survive, this parasite has to live a kind of double life. It's got this incredibly intricate journey it has to take, switching between two totally different hosts. Let's follow its path. This diagram here from the CDC gives us the perfect bird's eye view of the whole life cycle. It looks a bit complicated, but we're going to walk through it step by step. It really is a pretty wild journey of transformation. So let's break it down. Step 1. An infected tsetse fly takes a bite and injects the parasite into a mammal, could be an animal or a person. Step 2. Inside the mammal, the parasites just go to town, multiplying in the blood, lymph, and eventually the spinal fluid. Step 3. Another, uninfected tsetse fly comes along for a blood meal and slurps up some of those parasites. And finally, step 4. Inside that new fly, the parasites transform and multiply, making their way to the salivary glands, all ready to start the whole cycle over again with the next bite. It's this relentless, continuous loop. So who's involved in the cycle? Well, the tsetse fly is the vector. But the main reservoirs, the primary homes for this parasite, are actually wild animals like bushbuck and lions, and also domestic cattle. This makes it a classic zoonotic disease, which is just a fancy way of saying it jumps from animals to humans. We humans are really just accidental hosts. We wander into their cycle, and that's what makes it so tough to get rid of. The parasite has this huge population of animal hosts to hide out in. So the big question is, what happens when a person becomes that accidental host? Well, the result is a disease called East African sleeping sickness, and it's devastating. Now, it's really important to know there are two main forms of sleeping sickness, and the one we're talking about, caused by Trypanosoma brucei rhodesiense, is the East African version. Think of it as the aggressive, fast-acting cousin. The West African type, caused by Gambiense, is chronic and can take months, even years, to develop. But this one, it's acute. It progresses so rapidly that it can be fatal in just weeks or months. It's a whole different ballgame.
And for travelers, this is the nightmare scenario. You go on a once-in-a-lifetime safari in Tanzania or Zambia. You get home and then you get sick, really sick. The symptoms come on fast, and all of a sudden you're a medical emergency in a country like the Netherlands, where doctors might not immediately recognize it. It requires super specialized care at a tropical medicine center. Imagine that. Your dream trip turns into a race against time.
So, how do doctors even figure out what's going on? Well, they have to work fast. The gold standard, the definitive method, is still good old-fashioned microscopy. A skilled technician has to literally spot these little guys wiggling around in a sample of blood or fluid from a lymph node or the spine. They can use fancy molecular tests like PCR to confirm the DNA, sure, but often it comes down to just seeing that unmistakable corkscrew motion under a microscope. Okay, so after all that doom and gloom, here's where the story takes a really hopeful turn. The global medical response, the fight back against this parasite, has made some absolutely incredible progress. And this right here shows you just how far we've come. Look at this. The old treatment was a drug called melarsoprol. It was literally an arsenic derivative. Arsenic! It was so toxic, it had to be given through an IV, and it could cause fatal brain swelling in up to 10% of patients. I mean, the treatment could kill you. Now we have fexindidazole. It's the first all-oral treatment. It's way safer, it's effective for both stages of the disease. Honestly, it is a complete and total game changer. But here's the catch. You can't just walk into a standard pharmacy in, say, the Netherlands, and pick up these life-saving drugs. They're not on the shelf. The medication has to be requested directly from the World Health Organization. The WHO keeps a global supply that's been donated by the manufacturers. So when a patient shows up at a specialist center like Erasmus MC, the hospital has to coordinate this whole international process just to get the medicine. It really shows you the global effort it takes to treat these rare cases.
So, what does this medical breakthrough really mean for the future of sleeping sickness? It is, without a doubt, a monumental victory. Shifting from a dangerous IV to a simple pill makes treatment so much more accessible. It paves the way for better control of the disease where it's most common, and most importantly, it dramatically lowers the risk of the treatment itself being fatal. It's a huge win. We pulled all this information together using a Gemini deep search. And if you want to dive even deeper, you can find a whole detailed list of our sources in the Notebook LM document that we've linked for you in the description. So, did you find this explainer helpful? Did you learn something new? If so, we'd love it if you'd subscribe to our channel and drop your feedback in the comments. We really do read them all.